What's up? This is Happy Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe. And on the phone line, I'm very excited about my next guest. You can hear her every day on the Tom Bernard Show, which can be found at tombernardshow.com. And she is all over Hollywood. The one and only Kristyn Burtt is on Happy Hour with Ryan Hoppe. How's it going?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
No problem at all. When I worked with Tom, you are absolutely my favorite part, not just of that show, but you bring this certain warmth to celebrity reporting. I, on my other show, talk about celebrity news all day, and a lot of the reporters sometimes seem like they don't have the people's best interest, but there is something about you that is so likable. You do a really good job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I do I always feel like I try and give a human side to it and just explain how a situation may be different than the way everybody else is reporting it, just so that they have the details and sometimes the subtext to a story.
So for me, getting into radio, I went to a community college, did some radio there, then I went to a trade school and then got hired in Cleveland and then went to Tampa, and I've been there since. For you, how did you get into the business?
Oh, mine is I went through such a backwards way. Growing up, I studied dance, and anyone who knows my coverage from Dancing with the Stars, none of that will be a surprise to you, but I went to NYU Tisch School of the Arts for dance on scholarship there. And once I graduated, I was following the professional dance career kind of path, like doing national tours, musical theater, working in ballet, but I was really burnt out. And I had this opportunity to host a children's dance video on how to Macarena, electric slide, hokey pokey. And it did really well. We wound up doing a second video of it. It carried me for like 2 or 3 years of my career. And I thought, this is fun being on camera. And it kind of just led to different opportunities in hosting. And I worked with a coach in New York City because I was living in New York at the time. And he said, I think you're going to have a career, but you're going to have a career on the West Coast, and I need you to move to California. And so that's exactly what I did. And I've always been a strong writer, so I started getting into entertainment reporting, using the skills off camera for writing, on camera with everything that I had learned from my coach in New York. And it just has led to so many incredible opportunities in TV and in film and podcasting. I love it.
I think one of my favorite parts about what you do is I don't dislike Dancing with the Stars, but it's just not my demographic. But my mom watches it every Monday, and growing up, it was on TV. And I feel like when you're reporting on it, you do a good job of breaking it down for people that don't maybe know about dancing.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's, the show has gone through so many waves, too, of popularity. It was wildly popular when it first came out in 2005. And then it was like the show of has-beens. And they've kind of refreshed it because TikTok, it became an obsession with Gen Z and TikTok. And they hired some younger dancers. And it's been amazing just to watch the roller coaster ride of Dancing with the Stars. So I think that oftentimes a lot of celebrities who do wind up on Dancing with the Stars now are seeing a major resurgence in their career thanks to the show.
Who are some names that were not doing so well? Or let me reword that. Who are some names that really grew from being on the show?
I think a great example from this past season, which was season 34 that aired in the fall, Andy Richter. Now, I think for a lot of us, we knew Andy Richter as Conan O'Brien's sidekick. And, I know he's had a podcast and everything. And he came on the show, as it's so funny now thinking he's like the old dad, which is kind of crazy. He's in his 50s. He's not that old. But, and he wasn't a great dancer. But he went in there with such a great attitude, worked really hard, did everything that he could, and played into the social media game aspect of it, doing fun TikToks with his partner, Emma, that he won people over and lasted far longer than he probably should have if it was just based off of dance. Because that show was still a popularity contest, too. So I think that he's going to see more opportunities come his way. And conversely, we've seen a reality star, which is Whitney Levitt, coming out of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and people are just like, they're just a reality star. Well, it turns out she's a great dancer. She had studied dance in college. She's currently starring on Broadway as Roxy Hart in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And that girl just has, I know, right? That girl has star quality. And I think Dancing with the Stars gave her that platform where she probably won't need to go back to her reality show anymore.
Now, did you get to hang out with Robert Irwin at all?
You know, I didn't hang out with Robert Irwin a ton this particular season just because he was super busy and so popular. But I also covered his sister Bindi Irwin season, and I think he was 10, 12. He was very, very young when his sister did the show. And it was amazing to see this little kid turn into this young man and win the show, you know, years later after his sister did. In fact, it was a decade in between because Bindi won in 2016 or maybe 2015, and he won in 2025.
So I saw a report that they're doing, I don't know if this is true because I don't know what to believe online, but I saw a report that he might be doing his own like job as a host for a spinoff. Is that any bit true?
It's true, and guess what? I'm the one who broke that news.
Are you serious? I saw that on E!
Yes.
News. Wow, good job.
Yes, thank you. I broke it on TikTok probably about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and that they're doing a show. And, you know, ABC hasn't even announced the show officially. Everybody else has scooped them at this point. But it's called Dancing with the Stars, The Next Pro. And they're going to do a reality show. I would say probably similar to So You Think You Can Dance type of thing, where they're just looking for that next star. And the prize is a spot as a pro on the next season, season 35 coming up this fall. It is being shot in Australia this spring. It'll start actually filming, I think, within the next month or so. And Mark Ballas, who's one of the pros, will be a judge. His mother, Shirley Ballas, who works on Strictly Come Dancing in the UK. That's the UK version of Dancing with the Stars. She will also be a judge. And Robert Irwin is finishing up his contract. He's finalizing it to be the host for the show.
Now, as a dancing pro, what did you think of So You Think You Can Dance back in the day?
Honestly, that was my favorite show to cover, and I miss it tremendously. Fox worked very well with me because I used to get all of these like spoilers and scoops, and they were like, hey, if we work with you, we'll give you basically access in timing these spoilers a little bit better. But it worked out really well. And this, I always think about this. You know, I think about someone like Reality Steve who spoils The Bachelor. I always think, why didn't ABC call him up and say, hey, let's work with you and find out a way to collaborate on some of these spoilers that you're finding out? So what would happen is Fox would give me like the list of choreographers and dances and like partnerships and things like that about a week ahead of the show. And then they would say, you can release it at this time on Friday. So it was all approved. It was authorized. So no one was even asking me like, hey, is this actually factual or not? I would say, hey, this is Fox approved, the spoiler. And you guys get the excitement going a week in advance. And it really worked out well. I also had the opportunity to go behind the scenes, meet the dancers, meet the choreographers, get a feel for what was happening. And a lot of those dancers have gone on to work on Dancing with the Stars, which has been amazing to watch their rise because I get to meet them at 18, and now some of them are extremely popular at 28, 30, and they're still working in the business.
What are some other shows you cover?
Well, I literally have covered the whole gamut. I have done full award show seasons where some years I am on the Oscars red carpet, but I mostly cover TV now. And a lot of it's in daytime and in prime time. So sometimes I'll be on the daytime Emmys red carpet, sometimes on the primetime Emmys red carpet. I also go behind the scenes of TV shows from Days of Our Lives to Young and the Restless. And people are always like, those are still on the air. And I'm like, not only are they still on the air, but CBS added a fifth soap opera in 2025 called Beyond the Gates that films in Atlanta. So I actually think we may see a resurgence in daytime soap operas in the next couple years. It's interesting.
It was funny growing up like 20, 25 years ago when I was homesick. Obviously, my mom wouldn't let me watch Jerry Springer, so I used to watch those shows. They actually don't have bad acting because people love to make fun of it, but
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything is cyclical in Hollywood, and right now we're seeing a downturn in daytime talk shows. We saw Kelly Clarkson; she's exiting the landscape by her own choice. But Sherry Shepherd's show was canceled after 4 seasons, so they'll finish out this year. And Jennifer Hudson, I'm hearing that show's on the bubble as to whether they'll pick it up or not. And you have to fill it with something. You need something, during those hours. So it's going to either be local programming or networks are going to have to come up with another idea. And I do think that we could see another soap on the landscape, which is fascinating that in 2026, these daytime scripted shows are still relevant.
How much longer do you think Drew Barrymore has for her show?
I think she has a better shot at sticking around than Jennifer Hudson, but I'll give her a couple years. That's my guess.
What do you think of that show? Like, what's your favorite all-time daytime talk show?
Ooh, you know what? I have a fondness for Ricki Lake back in the day.
Yeah.
I loved her just because she just felt like a regular girl hosting a talk show. I mean, everyone, I feel like the go-to answer, of course, would be Oprah Winfrey or Phil Donahue, that type of thing. But there was something so real about Ricki Lake, and that was an era where everybody had a talk show. Jerry Springer was there, and what was it, Jenny Jones? Like, I'm just trying to remember all of these that were, there were tons
Rosie.
in the daytime landscape. Rosie O'Donnell was really good. You know what I loved about Rosie? That was a good one. I'm glad you said that, because I love the fact that she always held space for Broadway and musical theater shows to perform. I think it was a great commercial for, these shows to come on, perform, and it would sell tickets for people. And I don't think we have that same champion in any of the daytime talk shows. Not that they don't feature music, but not as frequently as Rosie did.
You know what show I really liked? The one, because it was kind of edgy, was Wendy Williams. But the one critique I would say is I wasn't a fan of when she would out people that weren't ready to be outed. Because that's kind of the little problem with her legacy, where she would kind of say things she probably shouldn't have said. But she is a legend.
Wendy is a legend, and no one had better tea than Wendy, and oftentimes she was ahead of a story, and I don't think people realize that, or not enough people give her credit, that she knew enough of what was happening behind the scenes, because even before that, she was a major radio personality in New York City. So she knew everybody's legacy. She knew way ahead of everyone else of what Diddy was up to. And I'm talking about the bad stuff Diddy was up to. And, she would talk about it, but other people just weren't ready to talk about it.
Now,
outing people, I think that's bad. I will certainly agree with that. But, I mean, if only people had listened to what she had to say about Diddy, she knew.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, living on the West Coast, did you ever, and you don't need to say names, but was there ever anybody you talked to that was like talking about the Diddy parties? Because to me, I always knew two things. I always knew, and this is what's funny, I knew it from South Park. Growing up, I knew that R. Kelly was a terrible person because of that gross tape, hearing about it in Chicago. And then the whole rumor was he would hang out at the Rock and Roll McDonald's after high school football games and pick up girls. And then the other one was Diddy was always made fun of on South Park. So it's really weird how the two people that knew about it was South Park and then Wendy.
So the interesting thing about Diddy, when I watched the Diddy Netflix docuseries, I was like, oh, that's right. Like, I remember because I was in New York for some of that. And so I do remember some of the history, but because he was a New York City celebrity, I didn't hear as much gossip about that story. But I will tell you, conversely, here on the West Coast, I would hear a lot about Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
And the story had been portrayed oftentimes as just like all these actresses are lining up on the casting couch and they just want to get roles. They want to get the Oscar nomination. They want to win award show season. And you think back now, and oftentimes people were spinning it as the casting couch when it really was something much more sinister and much more dark. I interviewed Harvey Weinstein. I'm going to go back. I'm going to say it was somewhere around 2012 or 13.
Okay.
And a friend of mine took a photo of me interviewing him. I'm 5'3", so I'm not a very big presence by any means. And he was laughing in the moment. I did make Harvey laugh, but he was towering over me by a solid foot. And I always think about that after all of the stories about sexual assault came out, and I thought, I wouldn't have stood a chance. I mean, he's a very big presence. He was a big man, and that must have been really frightening for a lot of those women.
Now, you'll often hear that, like, Diddy could be super likable, or even you'll hear that, like, Epstein could be likable. Did Harvey have that thing that, like, a lot of psycho and sociopaths have, where, like, he was super nice? Because I've noticed it in radio. A lot of these guys that have major egos and are narcissists or whatever you want to diagnose them with, you will see a different side publicly where they're, like, the life of the party. What was Harvey like in public?
Harvey was intimidating, and I'm not going to even sugarcoat it. He wasn't that charismatic, super charming. He was just intimidating. And when I did interview him, and it was rare that he went down a press line, so that was kind of interesting. And it was during Oscar season. It was Oscars week. As I said, it was either 2012 or 13. But I went in on a fashion angle because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he was married at the time to Georgina Chapman, who ran the Marquesa fashion line. She's now with Adrian Brody, the actor.
Oh, wow.
So I just had, I know. It's like Hollywood is so small. It's crazy. And watching, and that's the crazy thing, because Adrian won the Oscar last year, and in doing award show season last year and being in the room with Georgina and Adrian, all I could think about was like how weird that triangle is, and think back to that Harvey moment. But I asked him about, like, do you have the opportunity to choose your outfit, or dating a fashionista, obviously like your wife at the time, does she choose your outfit? And he laughed. He thought that was so funny. And he's like, she lays out my clothes on the bed. And that's the moment that, like, my friend captured on camera, and people were like, oh my gosh, you got Harvey Weinstein to laugh, because everybody knew him as kind of a blustery, angry, intimidating presence. So he didn't have that same sort of charismatic reputation that some of the others do.
I don't know what it is, but like whenever I watch a movie and he's in the opening credits, like if I watch Kill Bill, I don't know, it creeps me out. Like, even though I like the movies he made, there's this weird vibe I get whenever I see that name in the credits.
Yeah, you think about what happened behind the scenes. It makes you think, like, how much wheeling and dealing happened, especially for some of the female actresses to get a role in that film. Or if they were a part of an Oscars campaign, like, what did they have to do? Were they intimidated? And, Gwyneth Paltrow has spoken on record about her situation. And while she was not sexually assaulted, she said she had a moment where it could have happened. And she was dating Brad Pitt at the time, and Brad kind of went after Harvey and said, don't you dare do that. But you didn't see a lot of people standing up for the women in that situation. So it does, the old Miramax days, they feel dark now that we know what happened. Do you think,
okay, obviously the Me Too movement was a good thing, but looking back on it, I don't even know what I'm asking. How big was that moment when all the creeps got brought down? You know what I mean?
Oh, it's a lot of mixed emotions, I think, because it was a watershed moment where people finally felt safe to actually go and speak about their experience. And there are so many different levels to what sexual harassment and sexual assault look like. And you think, wow, it happened to all of these other people. I think women now feel more empowered to speak out.
Yes.
And not deal with that. I think also in some situations it wasn't handled maybe as best as it could, because people were just, they'd bottled it up inside for a decade or 2 decades. And maybe Twitter wasn't the best place for that. But it had to happen. I think people have run a little scared, because we've seen some of these men come back and start working in Hollywood again. And you think, was that all for nothing? Was a lesson learned? I think there's a lot of frustrations there. And I think also, as we're seeing currently with the Jeffrey Epstein situation, which crosses over just about every industry, tech, Hollywood, politics, global relations, the royal family, these women still are fighting for their moment of justice. So
yes,
I think people feel empowered, but I don't always see that there are consequences for people who engage in these activities.
It is so weird. I know, well, I've interviewed Jackie Martling, who used to be on the Howard Stern show, but he doesn't really know who I am. That was 10 years ago. But it's so weird. Somebody that, I wouldn't say was a mentor. I used to see him at radio conventions. Bobby Slayton, the pit bull of comedy. It is so weird to think that somebody that I've had beers with at radio conventions is prominently in the files. It was the weirdest thing. And what really fascinated me, I try not to look too much at the files, but I'll look at the like recaps on like Reddit or whatever, because there's like pages about it. And what's weird is like that was kind of like the boomer version of like AOL Messenger or Facebook Messenger. Some of the things they were saying in the emails, I was like, you really want that in writing? It's very bizarre to me.
It is. It's bizarre to me too. And also all of these billionaires exchanging emails with really poor spelling and grammar. Like, that just surprised me. I don't know why it surprised me, but it really, the whole situation is strange. And you know, I was talking about this actually on the Tom Bernard show the other day. You know, living in Hollywood, we've kind of seen it all, or you feel like you've seen it all. You've been exposed to things probably that are a little bit different than maybe if you were working in, I don't know, education, or I don't know, or in a different industry. And you think that there's a darkness, and I always think that it's pretty easy to avoid the darkness in Hollywood. But I said, oh, there is a whole other level that is like way beyond the scope of what I would ever have believed. The stuff in the Epstein files is just dark and horrific and extremely sad.
I, the other day, was laying in bed, and I probably shouldn't be on Reddit before I go to bed, but man, I didn't really have a nightmare about it, but like reading that stuff, you can't read it before bed. If you want to read it, you got to do it at like 3 p.m, because man, it is just, it's almost infuriating how they kind of got away with it. Like, I know Jeffrey went to prison or whatever, but it is just like, to me, in my life, when I first found out there was evil, it was when 9/11 happened. But now, this is like the second moment in my life where I'm like, man, it's so weird to know people that are in the files and be a fan of some of the people. It is just crazy how, like, when you're grinding in life and you want money and you want to, like, grow and have power, it's funny how all these guys have all the resources and everything they could ever want. All the fancy dinners, all the vacations, and then they just resort to that smut. It's just, it's a fascinating thing.
It is, and I keep telling people, because anyone who wants to bring politics into it, I just say this is actually a human issue. I don't care what party anyone's part of.
Yes.
If they were involved in this, they go down. I
agree.
Care. And yeah, it really is about justice for those survivors. And I think it's extremely important. This has gone on for decades. So this has gone on through multiple administrations, obviously different parties, depending on who was in power at the time. And it's time. I don't know how this concludes, though. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's very strange watching it unfold and how it unfolds so slowly. I think it's going to take, we're seeing a lot of other countries get involved in doing their own investigations. I think it's going to take a global effort to make this all as right as possible or as correct as possible for these poor survivors who really deserve just justice at the end of the day.
You know what's weird? Going back to Diddy, like, growing up, you would hear him, well, for me growing up, he would be talking over Danity Kane, talking over Cassie, talking over all the songs he made, talking about being a bad boy in that. And growing up, I was like, oh, that's cool that he's a bad boy. And I listened to throwback music all day. And now, like, I'll listen to some Diddy songs, but specifically if it's with like Cassie or Keisha Cole or any of those names, it's so weird to think like especially when Aubrey O'Day went on Call Her Daddy, and just hearing how much of a creep he was to all the girls back then. It's so weird to think that like when I was listening to this music growing up, to think that like I had this image that everybody was having such a fun time and they really were not. It's very weird.
Aubrey O'Day has been calling him out for years, and everyone was just calling her crazy. And guess what? She was actually right. She and she was the only real brave one at the time to be speaking out against him. And it's amazing just to see how many people just stayed in his orbit for so long. I'm really curious to see what happens when Diddy does come out of jail, because he only got 50 months.
Crazy.
And some of it was already time served, so he'll be out sooner versus later. And how receptive are people going to be to have him back in the music industry? Because you know that he is plotting his revenge and his return.
Now, for me, I did follow the case, and I covered it on my podcast every day, but I felt like, I don't know, you would know more than me. Do you feel like they threw the wrong charges at him, things that couldn't bring him down?
I mean, the RICO charges were dropped, and I think that was probably the one that really would have put him away for a lot longer. And the only thing, if I'm correct, in recalling the situation, the only thing he wound up getting charged with was prostitution across state lines.
Yeah.
That's why he's in federal prison. Yeah. So, it's so complicated, and I think that in the prosecution, it was hard for them to get across that people don't understand why sexual abuse victims come back over and over again. But I think in just understanding abuse in general, especially domestic violence, it often takes 7 major incidents before a survivor leaves, before a victim leaves, and you hope that they become a survivor, because oftentimes that 7th time leads to their death. So for someone like Cassie to escape, it really, and have this whole beautiful life that she has now with her husband and her kids is incredible, because so many women don't survive this. And, you just wish, you hope that people understand that, and maybe the defense wasn't able to really carry that message across. Because I don't know if Cassie feels like there's justice for her.
Oh, yeah, I don't think she would. Let's talk about a happy thing before I let you go. So you work on the Tom Bernard Show every day, which can be found at tombernardshow.com. You also cover Dancing with the Stars. What are some other exciting things you have for this year, since we are very early into the year?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for what I do, everything is so different. That's what I love about my work. Yesterday, I was at a creator conference thrown by TikTok and H&R Block, where they invite creators, and I'm kind of like bridging this weird like entertainment journalism on social media. So a lot of my coverage has really shifted to social media over the last couple of years, and TikTok has become a huge proponent of that, which is really fascinating. And each week will be different, because some weeks it's a lot of set visits of what's happening in TV. Oftentimes I'll be invited to cover and interview the stars, which is great. We're in the middle of award show season, so I'll be doing award show coverage leading up to the Oscars in March. I think they're March 15th. Mm-hmm. And then plus I do a lot of writing as well. And that's what makes my job so interesting. I'm never just sitting in an office. There are days I just sit and write, which isn't as exciting, but every single day I can get up, do Tom's show, maybe go to set over in Burbank, do some interviews, come on back, write an article. That's what I love about entertainment, because it's constantly evolving. There's always something new to cover. And it's been fascinating over the last couple of years too, just to see the intersection of politics, entertainment, tech, even true crime these days.
Yeah.
They're all overlapping. It's really fascinating watching that shift.
Now, how did you meet Tom?
That is a good question. Here's the first thing. I've never met Tom Bernard in person. And I have been with him, this is going to be astonishing, since 2012.
Yeah.
So when he first started the podcast, and he was still on KQ, is it KQSR?
Yeah.
KQ.
KQRS, yeah.
KQRS, yeah, KQRS. So when he was still on KQRS, he started his podcast, and they were looking for an entertainment reporter. And originally, I think I came on once a month, and then it started once a week. And then when he left KQ Morning Show and decided to shift over to Hubbard Broadcasting, he invited me to come on every day with him. And I said, sure, I'll absolutely do that. So that's how I wound up on the Tom Bernard Show, and we kicked it off, I think, in 2023, and here we are in 2026, which is amazing.
Now, I'm not a morning person. I sleep in every day. So I was wondering, because I know what time is it that you go live with Tom in Los Angeles?
Now it's not bad. I go live at 8:30 a.m.
All right.
But
yeah.
when we first kicked off in 2023, we were doing a true morning show, and obviously Minnesota's 2 hours ahead of California. So my segment, I think, was at 5:35 a.m.
Oh, my
Pacific
goodness.
time. I know, and I had to wake up early because I would get up, and, we're using a video component, so I don't want to look like I just rolled out of bed, even though I just rolled out of bed. But I'd wake up at about 4:30 or 4:45, depending on what was happening, just so I could prepare some notes, really capture some of the headlines of what I've been working on, and then get everything set and ready to go for my segment. So it really was one of those situations where I was like, and then he pushed it back a little bit later to like 7:30, I think, and then 8:30 is where we finally landed. And I'm like, it's a good time. It works out.
I've done morning radio on and off for about 14 years, and I'm telling you, I think my biggest dislike of the mornings is not quite getting up, because once I have caffeine, I'm fine. It's more the pressure of, like, for you, it would be watching Emmys. For me, it's watching NFL. But when the game starts getting late or the award show gets late, and because, like, for me, it takes me about an hour to fall asleep. So if I'm up till 10:30, I'm really not going to bed till midnight. So that's my least favorite part about waking up in the morning, is that, like, immediate pressure of, you have that adrenaline of watching the award show or the game, and you're like, I got to go to bed right now. To me, that's the hardest part about morning radio, is that discipline of having to go to bed right away. You know what I mean? Or if friends want to hang out.
I've certainly learned that you sleep when you can in this business. There are a lot of weekends we have to work. The good news for us is Oscars is at 5 p.m. or Super Bowl is at 3 p.m. So there's a little bit of a time difference that works in our favor here on the West Coast.
Oh, nice. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, which is great. I love it, because when I lived on the East Coast, Oscars till midnight is crazy, and then you have to turn around and get up. But on an Oscar night, it's a 16-hour day, and you only get a couple hours sleep, because oftentimes I am doing hits on the East Coast. So oftentimes I'll do radio for West Virginia and Pennsylvania, at Florida, that type of thing. So you're just getting up super early, you deal with it, and you'll take a nap later on that day. But I also say I have 2 cats. So
Me too.
They want to get
up
early, they want to eat. Yeah,
Yeah.
They're not going to let me oversleep through any alarm. I promise you that.
My cat doesn't quite wake me up, but she does this thing where, like, I think she almost knows I have to get up, and she begins, like, walking on the bed, like, okay, it's time to get up. You know what I mean? Especially if I do it like 5 days in a row or every day, she kind of begins to show up. What are your cats' names?
London and Linus. They are 2 black cats, and Linus is the one. 4:30 this morning, he was like, aren't you getting up? I'm like, it's a weekend. Can't we sleep in? Nope.
Yeah.
4:30, he wanted breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Once you feed them, though, they're all good. Before I let you go, where can people find all your work?
Yeah, I would say social media is the best place to keep up. And I would say the 2 platforms I'm using now are Instagram and TikTok. It's under my name, Kristyn Burtt, so you'll find it there. And that's kind of where Instagram's more of the day-to-day. TikTok is if you're looking for more entertainment news. So I kind of treat them a little bit differently. What
are the names of the accounts?
On TikTok, it's just my name, Kristyn Burtt, Kristyn Burtt. And then on Instagram, just add the word "the" in front of my first and last name, the Kristyn Burtt, or the Kristyn Burtt.
Perfect. It's been a lot of fun having you on the show, and when there's more news to break, I'd love to have you on again. It's been a lot of fun. You're my favorite part of Tom's show, and for everybody, go to TomBernardShow.com to hear her reports. Thank you for calling into the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour.
It's time for Hoppe in the morning. RyanHoppeRadio.com.
Happy Hour will be right back.